A couple of years ago, I used to think that getting in the productivity zone was so easy and natural, and all I needed to have was the right motivation and the right mindset. What I quickly found out is that motivation doesn't last long, but work still needs to be done. And so with a lot of trial and error, I finally found a formula that works for me, how to get in the flow zone almost on command, that I want to share with you today. These are my 5 killer tips how to get in the flow without overwhelming ourselves. And tip number 1 is approach the task with a positive mindset. If we dread a task that we have, our mind will already find so many obstacles and so many reasons to justify procrastination or why we should be putting this off. And in the end, we're only hurting ourselves. Our future selves will not be happy that we procrastinated and that we didn't do the important task. Plus, we might actually lose the job, or, it has a lot of negative consequences. So whatever it is, the problem that we mostly have with the tasks is our own mindset. Not all the tasks are fun or interesting, but the mindset we decide to take on is very important. I like to spin a task to make it more interesting and rewarding. I tell to myself that if I finish this complicated task, I will reward myself. For example, I can watch an episode of my favorite TV show as soon as I'm done with that. So that way I find the motivation. It's an external motivation outside of my task, but it gets my work done. I also recently read a book called Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. There are a lot of great ideas in that book, but one of the ideas was that if we approach the work with a positive mindset and think of the benefits we can reap from completing it, we are much more likely to complete it and to be successful. And I know there are a lot of people out there who don't enjoy their work, people who dread Mondays and are happy when it's Friday, and they hate going into the office or hate doing the work they do. And if you are one of those people, think about what is it that attracted you to this organization, to this company when you first started. It couldn't have been just the money. Or maybe if it is, maybe use that as motivation. But a lot of the times it's more than money. It could be the organization's mission, or the people that you work for, or where this job can take you in a couple of years. There are a lot of reasons why we accept to do what we're currently doing. So reconnect back to this mission, to this desire that you initially had. Mindset is a choice, so the mindset we decide to take on is going to be a huge factor in determining the success of our outcome. Tip number 2 is take a bigger project and divide into smaller, digestible, but a little bit challenging tasks. So when I say a little bit challenging, there is actually an unspoken golden rule that says that the challenge we take on should be only 4% more difficult than our abilities to do it. This is not an official rule, it's like this unspoken rule that a lot of people know and a lot of people refer to. But again, it says that the task we take on should only be 4% more difficult than our abilities to do it, because then we feel like we've accomplished something we haven't been able to up until now. If the task is way too easy, then we are easily bored, we don't feel any satisfaction, we don't feel any joy from doing this particular job. If the task is too complicated, then it's quite the opposite is true. We will feel so much frustration from not understanding what is being asked of us, and we will be spending a lot of time figuring out what the task is and how to approach it rather than actually working on it and taking care of it. There's actually a very interesting chart, and it goes like this. To get in the flow zone, we need to match the skill level to the challenge level. If the task is too complicated for our skill level, we will experience anxiety. On the other hand, if the challenge is too easy for our skill set, we will easily get bored, and in any of these cases, we will not be experiencing fulfillment. And so to stay in the flow, as the skill set progresses, the challenge needs to progress as well, and vice versa. Tip number 3 is identify your peak performance time. It is really hard to get into the flow state when you are tired, or when you feel frustrated, or when somebody tells you you have to get in the flow state right now. That's not always possible, and it's not healthy either, because we all have our own rhythm when we are being more productive. Our energy and our mental state goes up and down throughout the day. It ebbs and it flows. And if we can identify what time of the day we are being most productive, and if we can match that to the most important task that we have to do, then we will see much greater results. And it takes some time to figure this one out, what the most productive times for you are. For me, it turns out to be early in the morning, and then my energy drips at about in the early afternoon, and then it picks up back again at about 3 p.m. So I do see this wave sort of motion in my energy time, and I'm able to leverage that. So when my energy is high, that's when I do a lot of the analytical work, a lot of the creative work, and all of the other stuff that requires a lot of brain power. And when my energy is low, that's when I typically take care of routine tasks, such as checking my email, decluttering my email, responding to emails that are not urgent, and so on. For me, it's really important to know what my peak productivity time is, because I want to work with my natural rhythm rather than against it. And I think that's why a lot of people, especially those who work in creative fields, have a very hard time accepting a 9-to-5 job, because creativity doesn't just come on demand. Our energy doesn't just come on demand. We do have this natural rhythm that we can work with. And of course, there are ways to pick up your energy, to go work out, or to take a break. There are ways to train your energy in that sense. But following what you naturally already are gifted with and what you're good at is going to be a game changer. It has been in my case. Point number 4 is have a clear purpose and immediate feedback. When we lack clarity about something that we're doing, it's very hard to get into that optimal concentration zone because, well, what are we really focusing on? Where do we get from here? How do I know which actions to take if I don't know where I want to end up? And it's so easy in situations like that to let your mind just wander and let procrastination take over because you absolutely lack clarity. So goals are very important to show us the direction and to know what we're working towards. But goals are even more effective when they have immediate feedback, because feedback aligns our expectations with what we need to achieve. And if we're doing something wrong, we can pivot and adapt and easily change right then and there, and then we know we're moving in the right direction. We need to know that we're moving that this course is taking us where we have to be, and again that our skill set matches the challenge of the task, and that is a perfect combination for flow state. And tip number 5 is work in time blocks. Initially it might be difficult to work in time blocks because there are so many distractions everywhere, and especially if your job involves answering the emails, getting new emails every day, and you get all these notifications, or if you talk on the phone a lot with clients. That's something that I do. I talk on the phone every day with people, and it's not always easy to block time and work on my tasks. But when I do it and when it's possible, it is a game changer. And even if I get a phone call during this time block that I have assigned for something else, that's okay, because at least I'm avoiding any other distractions outside of work, such as social media, for example. If I want to check my notifications related to social media, I remind myself that there's a break coming soon, and that's when I will check all the notifications. So the technique that I use for time blocks is called the Pomodoro technique, and I use it a lot. I use it every day, and I actually talk a lot about this on my channel, so make sure to check my other videos. But the idea is very simple. We work for some time and then we take a very short break, and then we work for some time and then we take a short break. So whenever I'm tempted to check my notifications or to check an article or to see the news, what's happening in the news and whatnot, then I remind myself that I will do so in a couple of minutes when my work time is done and when it's break time. And so I'm not tempted right then and there to check everything, to check any notifications, and then completely get lost. We live in an environment where there are so many distractions, and knowing how to get in the flow state on command despite all this noise around us gives us a significant competitive advantage over everyone, not to mention greater intrinsic motivation, a more positive mental state, better results, and overall more productivity and creativity. And fortunately for all of us, this is a skill that we can train on. It's like a muscle. The more we practice it, the better we become at it. Many people are not familiar with the flow concept and how to get there, but you can help as well. Give this video a thumbs up so that YouTube can push it and more people can have access to it. More people can see the very simple 5 tips I just gave you that helps me a great deal. And I hope more people can implement it and see great results as well. That was all for today. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.